Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchists Dave.
I'm Nerdarchists Ted, and tonight we're digging into the bones of your world, its legends, its lies, and the truths that spark entire campaigns.
From whispered origin stories to apocalyptic prophecy under the dome, the world shattered when chaos magic surged across the land, twisting life, breaking laws of nature, and ending civilization as it once was known. In the aftermath, the last refuges rose, the dome, sealed cities forged from crystal steel and desperation. Each dome filters out the worst of the wilds, monsters, warp the chaos storms, mutation wins, but the protection comes with isolation and control. Inside the dome, survival isn't just about food and safety. It's about power, secrets, and who gets to write the story of what happens before. You can find links to weekly articles on nerdarchy.com in the description below. Nerdarchist Ted is always there, hard at work.
Right now, I'm expanding upon the area around Crystalia. Last week and this week, I dropped a little mini adventure, something that's supposed to be like 2 to 3 sessions worth of material, so you can go and check that out. Lore and myth aren't just flavor in dome cities, they're foundations. Entire cultures have grown up believing the Baron's version of history, the priesthood stories of salvation, or the gladiators' worshipped prophecies. But dig a little deeper and you'll find cracks, both literal and metaphorical. The truth may be ancient, dangerous, or even alive. In the domes, myths don't stay buried. They claw their way back.
Founding lies. Every dome has a different creation myth. Who built them? Why are some cities bigger, cleaner, or more mutated than others? What's being kept out or in?
So this is the fun part of this particular world, is the fact that we want each dome to be different. The rulership is different. The people are different. The domes themselves could be vastly different from each other. Crystalia is built with a lattice work of pink translucent crystals, whereas Baleria is more like a spider web of Balerium, this like really dark metal that absorbs the magic of the chaos storms rather than just kind of deflect or reflect it. So the fact that these domes are all different speak to how the peoples that live there are going to absorb the truth, or in this case lies, that are being spread by its rulers. In Titanholm, the city that's vast and run by giants and truly a titan that's a king, their civilization is built on might makes right. Giants are the superior city, superior species, and if you don't have giant blood in you, you might as well just be non-existent because they could care less about you there. Whereas in Crystalia, it's run by noble houses, the grind barons, that are looking to set up their version of history and how things should be.
Yeah, in Crystalia, pretty much you're going to be taught growing up there that it's always been the grind barons. They're the ones that erected the barriers in Crystalia in order to keep out all the monsters and chaos magic, and that's just the way it's always been. But that doesn't actually mean that is the truth. That is just the lore that has been spread to the populace. At this point, I guess it would be more like propaganda than lore. There's nothing saying that they actually created the barrier that protects their citizens. They could have found it, they could have conquered it, they could have stole it. There's so many more options, but that's not the lore that they're going to teach. Just like in the other domes in other cities, they're going to all have their own myths and legends around how the dome sprung into existence. And depending on the leaders of that particular dome will definitely reflect on what that looks like, what is being taught. It's another way that they use to control the populations because they want them to believe that they're the only ones that could possibly make sure these barriers stay erected to protect them from the harshness of the environment that is the world of after this apocalyptic event that kind of destroyed most of the world and most of the things that lived in it, or at least changed them pretty much.
So extrapolating it to your world, is every area that has been settled, was it a conquering? Was it a finding, a founding? Who lived there before? If you talk to a vast array of people across the U.S., the founding myth and legends of the USA are vastly different depending upon the nationality of who you speak to. It's a vast story. So when you look at a fantasy world that could have these same extrapolations, you could have displaced citizens, you could have conquered peoples, and their versions of the story are going to be different as to what transpired versus the people who now live there, the conqueror. So it could be definitely a lot of fun to play with those kinds of things, to build on your established history and to possibly right the wrongs of the so-called founders of your city, especially if one of the players is playing a character that's of one of these displaced species. That could be a pretty cool redemption arc for that kind of character.
Yeah, it's kind of a great place to introduce alternate and conflicting histories too, right? And then let the players kind of suss out for themselves what they think is the actual truth.
So the dome's purpose, are the dome's shields, prisons, research experiments, or something else entirely? we've kind of hinted at this concept, which is kind of loosely going forward until we come up with something else of like, perhaps these are either ancient magics dropped by the gods on their way out the door, or are manifestations of the sleeping gods themselves, which is why the domes are all different and operate differently. They are, in fact, probably all of the above. They're shields for those citizens living inside, but the leaders want to keep them inside because by being inside, sure, I need to make sure that I get food and shelter for you, but at the same time, you operate off of currency. We generate things that eventually money is trickling back to the government. They have power, they have wealth, and they want to keep that there. And with wealth and power has the ability to, okay, well, especially in Valeria, the city that I've got, which is a majocracy, absolutely research experiments are going on. So the citizens living within, being trapped within the domes, is funding these research experiments to see what kind of new magics and things might be possible.
And that's on the microcosm level, right? Think about like the people don't really know how the domes were created or by whom. They just know what they've been told. What if the domes themselves are experiments, right? They're basically biodomes that someone else is observing. We've talked about the way that Ulthgania became the setting it is today, this post-apocalyptic D&D world, is because the gods kept meddling and creating things and deciding, nah, I don't like this, we messed it up. And they would sweep it aside into a pocket dimension until they did this so many times, they just weakened the barrier between worlds, particularly the realm of chaos. And that chaos magic just kept seeping in the form of storms. And that's what actually causes the major catastrophe that essentially destroys the world as it was known before. Well, what if the gods didn't stop meddling? What if they didn't stop creating things? They just decided to put in some fail safes. Like, what if we put them in these little domes? So when it goes wrong, or if it does go wrong, it's not nearly as much. It's less to clean up. What if they're still doing what they've always done, but the people just don't know that they are the research experiment?
You can have a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun with that concept, especially with the gods like stepping back to like observe how are they going to handle this vast change, because the gods aren't as present as they once were within the earlier days of Ulthgania, within the Griffin Gaff style games. So it could be more than just research experiments. It could be a lot going on, multiple layers, like that onion.
But Ted, what about cultural echoes? Gladiator schools, scavenger cults, machine worshipping sects all have origin stories and none of them match.
This is the great part to build the world and make up a whole bunch of things that may or may not be true. In order for an organization to have power, they need to have confidence and they need to have a story. And when your leader steps up and says, this is the way it is, that message needs to sell. And doesn't matter what the truth is. There are plenty of organizations and people in power across this globe in the real world that spew forth messages that are categorically wrong. And yet they broach a following. They pull people in, people line up just to throw money at these charismatic leaders. And whether you're talking about a gladiator school, a scavenger cult, or any number of things, you throw these kind of organizations, these kind of individuals into your world to divide, to bring people together, to have this note of power. And every single cult and organization is going to have one of these figures. And voila, now you have elements, these NPCs that are designed for conflict, for discovery, for elements that are going to breed the adventurers necessary to help uncover the truth and bring down the corrupt.
Well, also, too, when you introduce these different cultures and they each have their own myths and legends and lore to them, right, in the same world, and like they're probably going to have their own, for instance, origin myth, right? Look at our own different religions, mythologies, they all have them. They all have their origin story and they all conflict with each other, right? They don't all quite line up. And there's no reason why you wouldn't do that in your own world, to let your players kind of sort through them and try and figure out what their truth is, right? It may not even matter which one is true or not. It may matter more which is true to your characters, to your players' characters, right? Because that's going to be part of how they experience the world and how they interact with the world is through these truths. And they could be different for each of the players in your game, right? The fun part about that is it can create these fun tensions and rivalries within the group that don't necessarily have to bleed over into anything too cantankerous, but just enough for them to have different philosophies that they can debate with each other. And it makes for some cool role-playing opportunities, in my opinion.
One of the things that Dave and I love doing as DMs is you put out plot hooks. And whatever things the players, the characters latch onto, that's where the story goes. So you can put out these myths, these legends, whether it be something in session 0 or whether it be something that gets kind of trickled throughout the game. When they find something that's interesting and latch onto it, great. If not, just set it aside, possibly use it later. And when you link it to these different organizations, it makes it easy to be like, okay, well, they've latched onto this one, which this thread kind of spider webs out. Where does that plot thread take the adventure? So just having those kind of seeds to drop, it adds more to the world and adds more to the player biting onto a thread that you put out there. Therefore, they've shown interest. This is the area I should explore. This is the area I should be able to prep my material in for when they're ready to go down this direction. So if your character lived under one of the domes, what truths would they refuse to believe, even if it turned out to be real? If you had fun, hit that like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss when we drop another tale from the edge of imagination.
And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.